All right, guys, so I do want to just spend just very briefly, get some of the kind of boring stuff out of the way, if you will, first around payroll. Do want to show you a little bit of the configuration that goes into payroll. So if you're just starting out, if you are thinking about subscribing to payroll, or maybe you're brand new to the payroll module, there is some configuration, of course, not a ton, nothing really heavy. But first thing I want to show you, if you are already using timesheets, then you are actually ahead of the game. You're actually moving in the direction already towards using the payroll module. So one of the first things is just having those pay periods configured. So you can see here, if you're already familiar with timesheets, which many of you are, this is big, is just the visibility of timesheets, getting your pay periods established, because 90+% of customers are going to be using timesheets to produce their paychecks. So that's kind of the first step. Next thing, I'm not going to spend any time on the role configuration. I think that's something, if you do get deeper in and you do want more information on that, you can certainly reach out. I'll give you those channels toward the end, and we can certainly dig into those details. I do, however, want to show you just some of the configuration, just so you're familiar right here under payroll. So the big three would be pay types, pay disbursements, and pay deductions. A lot of these types of things are very common to other payroll systems. So if you're considering migrating from another payroll system to OnTarget, some of this is going to look very, very familiar. It may have a different nomenclature, but it's gonna have a similar look and feel. Pay types, if you are already using OnTarget timesheets, then you likely are already using pay types. That is certainly the best way to get timesheet data out of OnTarget using our employee timesheet report. But short story here is pay types is defining how do you pay folks, right? So if we just open up salary, for instance, this is typically a gross total that's going to be defined back at the employee record. These are folks that obviously would be subject to tax, receiving W-2s. So, you know, hopefully you guys kind of get the idea. Again, if you're not familiar with pay types and it's your first time seeing this, it's nothing to be, nothing scary for sure. It's just, again, defining how do you pay your folks. Are they contractors? Are they subject to tax? Are they not subject to tax? Is it based on hourly pay? In the case of like AFL or residential, where it's a daily rate, are they paid at a daily rate? We also fully support with the payroll system PTO and the calculations around that, calculations around vacation time. You can see here sick time, mileage, miscellaneous reimbursements, lump sum bonuses, like any of the things that you can think of that would be part of any other payroll system, we do it. I think you're going to see where OnTarget really, really shines here in just a bit. However, if you're already using OnTarget for other things. The next thing would be pay disbursements. Again, just kind of getting some of this boring stuff out of the way first. This is, again, just defining more or less how do you pay folks. Is that using paper checks? Are you like 99% of other agencies that are using direct deposit at this point, right? This is an example of a configuration using, you know, this is the bank that you've defined. It's going to be direct deposit and it's going to be checking. You can additionally set up, we do a direct deposit directly into savings accounts. And I'll show you this in just a bit when we get to the actual employee and contractor records, but it's very sophisticated. We have the ability to split payments for your staff. So if I want $100 taken off the top, put into a savings account, and then I want the remainder put into my checking, we absolutely support all of those common functions that any payroll system supports. The final, again, we do actually support, for those that are still using this method, printed checks as well. So again, that's just getting that out of the way. You set that up the one time. Again, you set your pay types up typically one time at the onset of payroll implementation. You're good to go. And then the final thing that I want to go over is deductions. So your miscellaneous deductions, we don't have a whole lot here in this test database, but get the idea. This could be anything from garnishments to 401k to child support payments. This could be, again, any of the medical deductions, any short-term and long-term disability, any of those other things that would be part of miscellaneous deductions that would be coming out of folks' paychecks. On Target fully supports all of that. Pre-tax, post-tax, right? We handle every bit of that. If this is based on an amount, if it's again, I mentioned health insurance. Is this a group health insurance? Is there an employer contribution? Is this based on a percentage? Is it based on an amount? So all of that. What type of employees in terms of their status would it apply to? Does it apply only to full-time? Does it apply to full-time and potentially part-time employees, contractors? All of the tax handling, every bit of that is going to be defined here too in terms of the miscellaneous deductions, much like it is back at pay types and sort of how we define how tax handling should be handled. So again, getting kind of all that, what I consider kind of that boring stuff out of the way, but super necessary, super essential to your implementation of payroll. You've got all of that in place. Once you define all of that, it's really then just a matter of going and getting that information plugged into your staff records. So if we take a look at Supervisor Sam, we're talking about really 4 tabs here. We're talking about the first thing we already talked about, which is pay types. So that's where you're defining what is the pay type, how are we paying them? Again, is that hourly? Is it a lump sum? Is it mileage? Is it training time? So we support things that are related to billable time, meaning that there's a service being provided that you're being reimbursed for as an agency, and then you're paying your staff wages accordingly. And you can see here, you can define the amount paid down to the individual employee record. You can define any overtime that may apply, max allowable. We actually support group rates as well. So if you define your pay based on, hey, I get paid X amount for one client, I get Y amount for 2 and Z for working with 3 clients, then we fully support all of that. So it's very sophisticated in calculations there. Second over, of course, is pay disbursement. So this would be, again, 99% of folks are using direct deposit at this point. This would basically, just to kind of give an explanation, would say 100% of my direct deposit should go to a checking direct deposit account, and here's my routing and my account information, right? So any of that stuff that you would get from a direct deposit form from the individual, from your staff. Miscellaneous deductions, again, we kind of talked about this, what would apply. If I don't have any deductions, then certainly I'm not going to be removing that from my pay. If I do, these are the kinds of things that you're going to be adding. You can add an effective date. So if you have a certain waiting period for a deduction, if you have a certain, threshold amount that needs to be set, or a certain percentage, I think about like things like garnishments, things about your child support, things of that nature where there may be a threshold, an annual threshold. You certainly can set all of that in. So all of that, again, just kind of standard payroll stuff. Taxes, lastly here, we support, of course, all of the major filing types and tapping into all of the current tax tables, obviously supporting multiple states, multiple tax types, withholding allowances, all that good stuff, all that stuff is just very standard. And then finally, we do, I mentioned this in the very beginning with PTO, we absolutely support the banking of time, the calculation of personal time off, of vacation time, all those different buckets of time that you may have. So all of that is configurable. All those things that you would expect from a sophisticated payroll system and calculation of time off, and all the different methods that you may calculate. Is it calculated based on years of service? Is it calculated based on how many hours that I provide? So we support every bit of that. This is just the tab where you would actually see that information populate for a particular employee record. So again, that's just kind of that back end configuration piece, all of that stuff that you're kind of front loading in order to get prepared for a payroll. Any questions with that before we move into kind of the last 15 minutes where I want to really demo it for you, just kind of see the magic happen? Any questions before we move on? Check the chat here. All right, guys. If not, then we will keep moving on because we definitely want to get to the part everybody is anticipating seeing. So if you were on the August instructor-led training, we talked about timesheets, which is a great precursor to this session, which is payroll. If you're using timesheets and OnTarget and you're not using payroll, I think you'll really understand why one rolls so beautifully into the other after this session. So I've got a timesheet here for my pay period 9/1 to 9/15 for Supervisor Sam. So you guys, if you saw the session from last month, then you can certainly remember this. If you haven't, I definitely would encourage you to go back and take a look at that. But I'm going to go ahead and sign this timesheet, and we've got it signed. And of course, you've got bulk approve available, but I'm just going to go ahead and one-off approve this. And so again, the majority of folks, if you're using OnTarget for clinical documentation, if you're using EVV capture, if you're paying folks based on their note documentation in any capacity, and that time is folding into a timesheet, then typically you are paying folks based on that time. Now, that's not the only way that you can pay your staff in OnTarget. I'll talk briefly about that. You certainly can manually enter time. If you pay folks based more on productivity or based on paid claims, we certainly can accommodate that as well. So many ways to get your folks paid on target. So primary one, of course, is timesheets. I've got this one approved and ready to go. So if I go to time records, and you probably saw this, again, this is going to be a little bit of a refresher from last time. It really kind of happens here at employee timesheet. The first thing is really to run this report, right? So again, I've got my pay period, 9/1 to 9/15. I'm going to run this for approved and signed timesheets. All right, so here we go. I've got all that calculation happening. I've got my mileage. I've got my hours. I've got my extended time against my rate. So all of that's coming in, right? So this is really based on services provided. So Supervisor Sam did a little bit of day support, provided some community networking services. Also have some mileage, so some non-billable time. Maybe I could even have some training time thrown in there. So again, typically paying from your timesheet time. So super, super simple. Again, if you think in terms of timesheets, I've got maybe 100, 200, maybe even 300 staff or more. In a couple of clicks, I can basically generate all of those checks. Okay, so this is kind of where the magic happens. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set some calculation options. I'm going to set my check date for today, and then let me go ahead and plug in that pay period. You can choose to set the, leave the defaults in place for the deductions. Maybe you're doing an out of cycle check and you want to deselect. You always have that as an option as well. So once I've done that, I've said, hey, this is the date in which I want to pay. This is the pay period I'm going to create the checks for. After that, guys, after you've run the report, it's super, super simple. I'm just going to filter down again to our guy we're working with here, Supervisor Sam. Just imagine again, I want to run this for 300 staff, and I absolutely can. If they have signed approved timesheets hanging out there, and if you remember from last time, we looked at the timesheet audit report, which is super, super useful. All I've got to do at this point, again, imagine I want to create 100, 200, 300 checks, create paychecks, hit yes. I get this confirmation that says successfully created one paycheck. And now I simply go to paychecks. And I'm going to just filter this based on check date because I just created a check for today. Hit search, and there we go, guys. There's that check. So I can open this up if I want to take a closer look and I want to see kind of what that check stub actually looks like. So as you can see, it looks very much like a standard check stub that you would see with other payroll systems. However, I just generated this thing in a couple of clicks without having to do any kind of manual entry, without having to plug in any kind of manual data. Everything came from my staff timesheets. Maybe I had given them the power, obviously, to enter the mileage in. Certainly, you want to check that. But here you go. We've got all of our withholdings pulling. Everything is pulling in correctly. We've got our gross and our net, all the stuff that you would expect. I can adjust this as well. So if I needed to make an adjustment, say for holiday pay, if I needed to do one other thing that we do support is salary reduction. So if you've got, let's say, a staff that's getting paid based on salary, but you're needing to track productivity, you're needing to track actual kind of hours time, but you need to reduce salary based on that. We support that. You can see that in this final column by reduce salary. So that is fully supported. So you can, even though you get this check generated, you can massage it. You can do a little bit of editing and managing of that if you need to. If you need to do any sort of manual adjustments or removal of time, those kind of things. If I did that and hit save and calculate, I could recalculate that check. So this check is really just kind of a work in process at this point until I print it. So this is kind of the last step, guys. We got about 7 minutes left. I think we're doing really good on time. Before I do that, I did mention you can also manually create checks. So if I wanted to create a check, let's see, I've got Sleeping Beauty in here. I'm going to set calculation options again, and I just want to create a check on the fly for Sleeping Beauty, right? I want to do it for the same pay period. Maybe she is administrative. Maybe her time is not paid based on worked hours or based on billable time. Certainly, she could create a timesheet manually. That's also an option. But just want to show you, I can create a check on the fly here. So Sleeping Beauty, And let's say, you know what, she did a little bit, she did some mileage, or maybe she did a lot of travel. So let's go ahead and save and calculate that. So there we go. That's just a real quick example of how I can create a check on the fly. You've always got that at your disposal as well. Last thing would be to actually print the checks. Before I do that, I also can do a check review sort of in a global fashion. So again, going back to the idea of high volume, maybe I've got 100, 200 checks in here for the pay period, and I want to do a check review first, right? You always want to do that, make sure things look good. I'm going to do from all. And then this will pull up a pre-processing of that. I'm going to chunk through that information a little bit, guys. All right, guys, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do a refresh real quick. It could just be, again, we're in this test database test environment. So let me just look again by today. And then we want to do a check review. Let's just do this. Let's do selected, see if we get a quicker output. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. All right, guys, it could be that, again, we're just in this test environment. So let me just show you with Supervisor Sam. It could be that we just got some data issues going on in this test environment. So let's just check one of these so you get the idea. Here we go. So again, just bear with me. It's likely a data issue within this test environment. So imagine we've got a full listing. Again, we've got 100 check reviews, check previews that would come in here. I can look at this globally. I can kind of scroll through it. I can export it to PDF if I need to. I'm going to get my check totals. And then a really nice feature too, we show the full totals as of the last page. So the last page kind of gives us like that high level view of all of the federal taxable wages, FICA, SUTA, all of that good information comes in here. And we can kind of see that global total for all of our wage expenses. Last thing I'm going to do, let me just go ahead. I'm going to just print this one check. So let me go ahead and print Supervisor Sam from selected. Okay. And there we go. We now have a check number associated. And then if I want to get that direct deposit file, I can simply do that by reprinting. And you do also have a check register available. So after you've printed checks, but if I want to generate that ACH file, it's literally this simple, guys. It's essentially a text file. So most banks, you've got your portal, right? Digital age. You've got a secure portal, banking portal. And I would say 99% of banks we're able to support through ACH upload and direct deposit files. So this is kind of what it looks like. Every bank is going to be a little bit different. So depending on your banking institution, their ACH specs may be a little bit different. We would likely need to know those, kind of what that looks like, if there's any kind of tweaks we need to make on our end. But otherwise, you're grabbing this file. It may include information for 100, 200 of your staff. You're uploading that to your bank portal, and then folks are getting paid. So that's really it. That's taking it straight from, again, the kind of common workflow, the really suggestive workflow of timesheets to create paychecks from timesheets. We also have a function where you can auto-generate your salary, folks. That's even an option. So just a couple of last things here. I know we're right here at time. Filters, you can again filter by check date, by pay period. You can filter down to job title. So if you just want to take a look at your DSPs, printed versus not printed, you can void checks, right? So any of the things, again, that are just standard functionality of payroll systems. I already mentioned salary reduction. And here's a really, really cool thing too. If you're using OnTarget for payroll, your staff are going to automatically get visibility to their paycheck stubs. So there's a widget here. And so I can open this guy right up as this worker. And again, I'm only going to see my stub. So that's great, right? I can open this up. I can keep a track on it. I'm going to be able to see all of my pay stub information. If your staff are already using our awesome mobile app, they can also view that information within the mobile app. So a lot of great things, a lot of integration, a lot of good reasons to use payroll with OnTarget.